My parents saw a viral video of a little boy scarfing down 3 bowls of plain white rice with barely any sides, and somehow gaining 1 million followers. So, naturally, they forced my little brother to copy it. They didn't expect it to actually work. My 8-year-old brother, Peter, suddenly became an internet sensation. My parents were thrilled, dreaming of millions of followers and unimaginable wealth. Only I noticed something was wrong. Peter was just a kid, yet he could eat enough in one sitting to feed a full-grown man for an entire day. I begged my parents to take him to the doctor, to find out what was really going on, to make sure he could grow up healthy. They ignored me. And years later, after Peter was rejected by the daughter of his company's CEO, he blamed me for everything and murdered me. If it weren't for you, I'd be rich and famous by now, he spat. But then, I opened my eyes. I was back in time, right at the moment when I first begged Mom to take Peter to the hospital. In my last life, everything started when Mom posted a short video of Peter eating. In the video, he devoured a massive pile of sticky rice balls, using his tiny hands to grab steaming clumps and stuff them into his mouth with animalistic glee. The size difference between his small fingers and the giant rice balls created an adorable contrast, and in seconds, the entire bowl was gone. At first, a few commenters accused my parents of child abuse, but those voices were drowned out when Peter started live streaming. Every broadcast, he would wolf down rice balls while Mom sat beside him encouraging him. His meals were almost always plain white rice with a sliver of seaweed, yet he'd still wail afterward that he wasn't full. The audience was shocked and transfixed. Virtual gifts and money poured in. My parents were ecstatic, but all I could see was a boy who didn't know what it meant to feel full. It wasn't normal. I kept trying to convince them to get him checked out, and eventually they caved. The doctors told us Peter had a disorder affecting his hypothalamus. He couldn't sense hunger or fullness. That's why he could eat so much. But if we treated him early, the doctor assured us, there'd be no lasting damage. That diagnosis shattered my parents' get-rich dream. But they had no choice. They forced me to drop out of college to work full-time and pay for Peter's treatment. I worked 3 jobs a day, got 4 hours of sleep, and traveled across the state to find the best doctors. I gave everything. Thanks to me, Peter's condition was stabilized. He even got into college and landed a well-paying job after graduation. Then came the girl. He confessed his feelings to his boss's daughter. She turned him down. Peter had a meltdown at home. He screamed that he wasn't rich enough to deserve her. And my mother, afraid Peter would take his anger out on her, said, "You could have been a millionaire influencer if your sister hadn't insisted you were sick." Peter snapped. He tied me to a chair and force-fed me rotting, liquefied garbage through a tube until my stomach burst. "If it weren't for you," he snarled, "I'd be living in a mansion, eating like a king, not busting my ass for $8 grand a month." I begged for help, but Mom held my head down. "If it weren't for you," she hissed, "Peter would be making millions and giving me grandchildren. You're a curse on this family." I died. And then, I woke up. Back to the very day Peter first went viral. This time, I wouldn't fight it. Let him be the influencer he always wanted to be. Chapter 2. Mom lounged on the couch with her legs crossed, scrolling through Peter's fan comments on her phone. Her voice dripped with disdain as she glanced at me. "You're just jealous. Can't stand your brother being more successful, can you?" Peter's appetite only got worse. That day's live stream? He ate 2 full rice cookers of plain white rice, by himself. In my last life, it was this exact day I gathered a pile of medical articles and reports, trying to convince them again to take Peter to a doctor. Mom didn't want to hear it. She thought I was cursing Peter out of jealousy and slapped me across the face. "Bullshit. Say another word and I'll rip your filthy mouth apart. Your brother's going places. He's gonna be a star." I took a deep breath, grounding myself back in the present. Mom's face twisted in fury as she raised her hand again. I flinched away. "If I ever catch you saying anything bad about your brother again, I'll beat the bad luck out of you, you hear me? Always running your mouth, bringing bad energy into this house." The memory of my previous life, of dying with my gut ruptured and stomach bloated, still burned in my body. I looked down at the papers in my hand and finally believed this wasn't a dream. I had truly come back. "Eat up, Peter," I muttered. "You love eating, right? Go ahead, eat your heart out." "I'm sorry, Mom. I was wrong. I won't say anything bad about Peter ever again." I slipped away to the kitchen, claiming I was going to cook, and quietly photocopied the documents. The smoke from the burning papers vanished into the exhaust fan's hum, but Mom's voice still pierced through. "Ailey, boil the pork hocks for your brother, And don't you even think about sneaking a bite for yourself. Useless girl, always getting in the way. I don't know why we even bothered letting you stay in school. In this house, favoritism wasn't new. My parents had always doted on Peter and treated me like an afterthought, if not a punching bag. But once Peter went viral, they treated him like royalty and treated me like the mold under the fridge. Worse even, is live stream money? Just a few days of advertising and the kid could rake in tens of thousands. Me? I was 9 years older than him, still in school, still leeching off the family. They acted like my existence was a crime. College? What college? Dad scoffed. Get a job. Start making money for your brother. That's what you should be doing. Should have pulled you out of school years ago, Mom muttered. You think you're some kind of genius now, huh? I sneered silently. If I hadn't gotten top marks every year, and if the local school board hadn't pressured my parents to support their prize student, I probably wouldn't have even made it through middle school. Peter's bedroom erupted with the sound of gunfire, his video game. He was barely 8, but he cursed like a sailor thanks to my parents' constant vulgarities. At first, I used to think, he's just my little brother. We're family. I wanted the best for him. But after everything that happened last time, that was all one-sided. Just me, clinging to a fantasy. Now, hearing him shout profanities at his game and chew with his mouth open, I just felt sick, physically disgusted. Other kids his age were polite, bright, kind. Peter looked like an overstuffed yoga ball, reeking of sweat and leftover food, yelling about how many people he'd killed in his game. Eat, sleep, game, repeat. 4 feet tall, 100 pounds. Standing, he looked like a barrel. Sitting, like a bucket. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I pulled out my phone and opened Mom's latest upload on Peter's viral account. It was called Peter Eats Big, and in just over 3 months, it had passed 1 million followers. The storefront on the account featured shady, unregulated food products and mystery brand snacks with zero hygiene control. Mom only had a second-grade education. She didn't understand the internet or business. She just knew that money equals success. Dad? He didn't care either way, as long as there was cash for booze and poker nights with his degenerate friends. The viewers didn't care. They loved the spectacle. Watching Peter devour food like an animal was addictive. No one questioned it. They assumed he was just gifted. Some rich follower even challenged Peter in the comments, eat only 2 spoonfuls of rice, but with 2 giant platters of side dishes. If he pulled it off, they'd send him 100 virtual luxury gifts. Of course, Mom immediately said yes. Buried in thousands of comments, there were still a few like me. He's just a kid. Should he really be eating that much? That's not normal. Please take him to a hospital. But those comments disappeared quickly. Mom had deleted and blocked them. No one was allowed to say anything bad about her precious son. Praise filled the screen once more. I laughed bitterly. Peter wasn't just a big eater. He was sick. Uncontrollable appetite, constant fatigue, frequent urination. Classic signs of a hypothalamus disorder. But Mom thought it was just growth. To make things worse, she doused his rice with obscene amounts of lard and salt to flavor it up. Under studio lights and filters, it looked harmless. But it wasn't. His skin was perpetually greasy. He smelled awful. The other kids at daycare avoided him like a plague. But Peter, he thought they were just jealous of his fame. And Mom? She told him exactly that. She raised him to believe he was a king, and the other kids? Just peasants. He started bullying them, ordering them around like servants, stealing their snacks, pushing them around until they cried. Eventually, the teacher had enough and called Mom in. You need to discipline your son. What he's doing isn't acceptable. Liar. Mom snapped, shielding Peter behind her like a rabid hen. You're just jealous because my son's a star. You'll pay for this. She went straight home and slandered the preschool during her next live stream. Said the teachers were bullying Peter, refusing to let the other kids play with him. She even accused them of demanding bribes and gifts. Some unhinged fans started harassing the school, calling, emailing, even reporting them to the education department. The preschool defended itself publicly, but the drama only grew. Eventually, the school reassigned the teacher to another campus just to calm things down. Mom was smug beyond belief. My son's gonna be a millionaire influencer. Who are you to tell him what to do, a nobody making minimum wage? From that moment on, Peter became completely unhinged. And my parents? They let him. Chapter 3. At home, Peter acted like a spoiled little tyrant. At school, it was even worse. He used his size to snatch other kids' snacks, barked orders at them like a warlord, and made classmates cry on a daily basis. And every time, Mom made excuses. "That's just how boys are," she'd say. But Peter wasn't acting like a normal boy. He had no respect, no self-awareness, just entitlement, gluttony, and rage. Worse yet, he stopped calling me his sister. Now he just copied our parents and called me that useless freeloader. Whenever he didn't get his way, he'd throw himself on the ground and roll around, flailing his limbs like a beached pig. In my last life, I would have tried to stop him, tried to teach him manners, teach him boundaries, beg my parents to discipline him. Not anymore. Now, I smiled sweetly. I agreed with everything. I enabled it. I played the game, because I knew how it would end. At dinner one night, Peter started whining about wanting a new top-of-the-line gaming laptop. It cost over $2,000. Sure, we had some money now, but that was still a huge chunk. In the past, I would have tried to be the reasonable one, suggest a cheaper model, help them budget. But this time, I kept my mouth shut and watched them squirm. They glanced at me, hoping I'd step in. I didn't. Instead, I chimed in cheerfully. "You know, it's a good idea. If Peter's going to be a real influencer, he'll need a laptop for editing, right?" Peter, of course, heard that and immediately started banging the table and threatening to smash his plate. I slid my bowl out of reach and added, "We could even film more daily content. Advertisers love that. Not just live streams, but day-in-the-life videos too." At the mention of more money, my parents caved. Peter beamed. I shoved a whole plate of ribs in front of him. "You're working so hard, Peter. This is the good stuff. Mom got this wild boar meat from the farmer's market. Eat up!" They were so impressed with my new attitude. They even asked me to help order the laptop. I found a third-hand refurbished model online for half the price, pocketed the rest, and quietly opened a bank account to stash money for college. The laptop arrived, and Peter was ecstatic. Of course, he immediately wanted to play games online. The parental controls wouldn't let him register. So I sweetly offered to use Dad's ID to help him sign up. He deserved some fun after all that hard work, right? Peter seemed pleased with me lately. He'd stopped tormenting me, for now, and spent all day glued to the screen, gaming like a maniac. Mom was thrilled with my behavior. I'd stopped nagging about doctor's visits or education. I praised Peter constantly. I helped manage his live stream accounts. In her eyes, I was finally being useful. Soon, more and more businesses came knocking, wanting Peter to do brand deals and promotional videos. Weekend streams weren't enough anymore. Mom wanted more money. She made a decision. Peter was going to drop out of school. "What's the point of education?" she said. "Look at college grads. They still end up flipping burgers. Better he focus on being a full-time influencer." Dad wasn't totally on board. For once, he hesitated. He turned to me. "Haley, what do you think?" I smiled and said, "Mom knows best. I'm just a student. I wouldn't know anything." I laid it on thick, praising Mom's business sense. She practically glowed as she laid out her fantasy of Peter becoming the next tech CEO or entertainment mogul. Peter's influencer career became her full-time obsession. She spent all day glued to the comments section, responding to fans, deleting criticism, planning content. "Ugh," she'd mutter, "so many nosy people, saying my son is sick? They're the sick ones." Dad, meanwhile, lounged nearby drinking beer and echoing her rants. Idiots. Jealous idiots. They break their backs all year and make less than Peter makes in a day. But with Peter's growing fame came scrutiny. Some viewers started noticing he wasn't quite normal. Still, my parents didn't care. They didn't understand the internet or consequences. They just saw dollar signs. Every live stream ended with Peter bloated and gasping, belly swollen like a balloon. He couldn't even stand up. But no one noticed. Peter never moved much anyway. He just flopped into a chair and stayed there. Mom didn't care. The back-end dashboard showed skyrocketing sales. Her eyes sparkled with greed. I said nothing. This was exactly what they wanted, wasn't it? Instead, I quietly watched her scroll through vendor offers, helping her select the ones that paid the most. Now, it wasn't just video ads. Restaurants wanted Peter to do taste test visits, paid food challenges, eating on location. Mom complained that Peter's metrics had started to decline. People were getting tired of watching the same rice-eating routine. So I proposed a solution. "There's this barbecue place that wants to do a live challenge. Tons of meat, time limited. If Peter pulls it off, they'll pay a fat commission, and he can eat for free." Mom's eyes lit up. "Free food and money? She signed the deal on the spot. Dad wasn't thrilled. That's a lot of meat in a short time. Are you sure he can handle it? Mom rolled her eyes. What do you know? You've never helped with a single stream. Don't pretend like you know what he can eat. Dad shut up immediately. Mom was the queen now. Ever since Peter's rise to fame, she'd run the house. Dad had even quit working. The whole family was riding the Peter train. I put on my concerned sister voice. Mom, just make sure the restaurant uses fresh ingredients, okay? We don't want Peter getting sick on stream. That could ruin his image. She nodded seriously and grilled the barbecue joint until the owner promised everything would be pristine. Of course, I knew the truth. That restaurant? It had been shut down in my last life for using rotted meat. Old frozen zombie pork and even rat meat masked with chemicals and flavoring. It made the news and sparked a city-wide food safety crackdown. I remembered it clearly. I was working in a factory back then. But now, it was time to let fate unfold. The moment Peter's barbecue stream started, the viewership exploded. From a few thousand to tens of thousands in minutes. Mom and Dad looked like they were about to burst with joy. We had 3 grills running to feed him non-stop. Peter chomped away while the timer ticked. At one point, he asked for water. I brought him a bottle, but Mom slapped it out of my hand. Idiot, you drink water with barbecue? Get him a soda, something cold and fizzy. Mom, carbonated drinks will make his stomach bloat, I said sweetly. If he bloats too fast, he might not finish. She paused, then nodded approvingly. You're right, smart thinking. She handed him the water herself, and the stream continued smoothly. By the end, Peter had devoured over 150 plates of barbecue. Sales boomed. Viewers flooded the restaurant's site to buy meal vouchers. Just that one stream? We pulled in over $60,000 in affiliate revenue, plus another $150,000 in virtual gifts. It was the biggest payday yet. To celebrate, Mom baked a massive cake that night. It was after 9 p.m. when Peter finally emerged from his room, saw the cake, and immediately ran over. I happened to glance at it, and he shoved me hard. What are you staring at? This isn't for you. He stuffed his mouth, glaring at me like I was an enemy. Mom and Dad laughed. Smart boy, they said. Knows how to protect his stuff. I watched them, and the memory of my last life came crashing back. Peter had eaten an entire cake that night too. I'd worried it was too much. Tried to stop him. He thought I was trying to steal it. He rammed into my stomach so hard I collapsed. Then he kicked and punched me while I lay on the ground. You bitch, you want my cake? I'll kill you. His eyes were crazed, his face twisted with hatred well beyond his years. My parents had only stopped him because they were afraid he might damage me and ruin their chances of selling me off later. I couldn't move for days. But no one cared. I'd lain there all night on the freezing floor. In the morning, Mom still scolded me for not cleaning the living room properly. When I begged for a hospital, she scoffed. Drama queen. Your little brother's just a kid. How could he hurt you that bad? You're just lazy. Get up and clean. That time, I did. This time, I smiled. Let them eat their cake. Because the consequences were coming. Chapter 4. Dad's rage erupted. You trying to kill our son? He roared. He kicked Mom in the stomach so hard she collapsed to the ground, moaning. I didn't mean to. She sobbed. The eggs looked fine. How could I know? But I knew. She'd used the dirt cheap cracked eggs from the discount stall at the farmer's market. Some already months old. They'd been stored in the fridge, sure, but the shells were broken. Contaminated. Risky. I'd thrown those out in my last life. This time, I let her use them. When she looked at me with pleading eyes, silently begging for help, I delivered the final blow. Mom, the doctor said the food wasn't clean. That's why Peter ended up in the ER. Dad's eyes flared. He kicked her again, harder. She curled up on the floor, wailing. Just then, the doctor burst in. We need to operate, now. What's wrong with my son? Mom shrieked, scrambling to her feet. He has severe stomach and intestinal inflammation, the doctor said grimly. His blood sugar levels are dangerously high. He's showing signs of juvenile diabetes, and the excessive weight puts him at serious risk. If we don't act fast, we might lose him. My parents looked lost, confused. So I stepped forward, eyes shimmering with tears, and grabbed the doctor's hand. Please save my brother. He's our everything. The doctor nodded solemnly and rushed back into surgery. Mom clutched Dad's hand, sobbing. What if he doesn't make it? Dad paced outside the OR, breathing heavily. Then something in his eyes shifted, went cold. The surgery dragged on for hours. I drifted off on the waiting room bench. A sharp pain jolted me awake. Mom had pinched my arm. "You heartless brat. How can you sleep when your brother's fighting for his life?" I rubbed the sore spot and slid to the far end of the bench. "I'm sorry, Mom. I was just too tired. I'll take better care of Peter next time." I said it loud enough for nearby strangers to hear. People turned to look, frowning. "Some mother you are, blaming your daughter for this," one of them muttered. "Yeah. Grown-ups let the kid binge eat and now want to blame her?" Under their judgmental stares, Mom let go of my arm and sat back down, but not without glaring daggers at me. "Just wait until we get home." The hospital bill was brutal. Over $7,000 for surgery, tests, and a week of inpatient care. My parents winced as they paid, their expressions twisted in pain. Then came the final blow. An anonymous complaint triggered a full inspection of the barbecue restaurant from Peter's last stream. Turns out the place had indeed used expired frozen meat, some of it over a decade old. I know, because I was the one who tipped them off. No way I was letting that place poison anyone else. Naturally, Peter's influencer account got pulled into the mess. He had promoted the restaurant. The public was furious. Other content creators saw their chance, fueled the outrage, called for his account to be banned. And just like that, Peter's platform vanished. No more income, no more sponsors, just a pit of despair. My parents stopped sleeping, stopped smiling. Their cash cow was down, and they didn't know what to do next. In my last life, when Peter's medical bills became overwhelming, Dad started talking about divorce. But we were too broke for that to matter back then. Now, he had money, and a younger girlfriend he'd been secretly supporting with Peter's earnings. Sent her thousands every month. She made him feel young again. She made him feel alive. Now that the money was gone, she wasn't going to wait around. And Dad? He wasn't going to stick around either. Chapter 5. They couldn't take it anymore. "Haley," Mom said one afternoon, her tone fake sweet but her eyes desperate. "You think Peter's okay now, right?" They'd just come back from a follow-up appointment, pacing around the living room like anxious vultures. "The doctor said he's fine, right?" She pressed. "His career can't just end like this, don't you agree?" "I mean, I don't really understand these things, Mom," I said, acting innocent. "But we've always followed your lead. You're the smart one. You've never been wrong." That flattery hit her just right. She beamed with pride and snapped her fingers. Within the day, she relaunched Peter's account with a new name and reused some leftover footage. I helped her edit and schedule it. But a month passed, and barely 50 new followers trickled in. Dad was constantly on edge, pacing and chain-smoking. Mom developed insomnia. The money was drying up. The only plan they could come up with? Get Peter back online. Get him viral again. "Everyone misses you, Peter," Mom coaxed. "They love watching you eat. They say you're amazing." Of course, she didn't give a damn about his health. She didn't even pretend to care anymore. She just wanted out of the financial mess. And Dad? He was barely home anymore. Turns out, his girlfriend was pregnant. He'd look at her glowing face, her young body, and then come home to Mom, a woman he now saw as a dried-up burden. Add Peter's medical costs into the mix, and the resentment simmered like a pot about to boil over. So Mom made her move. She cooked 2 massive pots of spicy seafood stew, lobster, shrimp, crabs, clams, all swimming in red-hot chili oil. The kind of thing Peter wasn't supposed to eat ever again. "Sweetheart, look what Mom made. You must be starving after all those bland hospital meals." Peter's eyes lit up. He hadn't tasted flavor in weeks. He sat down and devoured the entire table, face covered in orange grease, shell bits flying. The viewers were hypnotized. The live stream chat exploded. Peter's comeback was a hit. And me? I sat quietly at the side of the table, smiling so sincerely it almost scared me. He was back. Peter's fame reignited almost overnight. Brands started reaching out again. Mom and Dad began fielding sponsorships, restaurant invites, fan shoutouts. Dad even got him booked for 3 live streams a day. Naturally, I was stuck managing the schedule, editing videos, inflating fan metrics, and answering comments. I didn't mind. Because behind the scenes, I was funneling money into my secret college savings account, my escape fund. All I had to do was wait. Once the national exams were over, I'd leave for good. Or so I thought. Peter's body couldn't handle it. One day, during a live stream, right as he was stuffing his 3rd crab claw into his mouth, he suddenly turned pale. Then he vomited, violently. Chunks of seafood and blood splashed across the table. For a moment, the live stream chat froze. Then it exploded. What the hell? Blood? Are you crazy? This is abuse. Is this a prank? Call the cops. My parents panicked. Mom ended the live stream in a flash, terrified that showing blood would trigger a content violation or ban. They dragged Peter to the bathroom and, get this, used a toothbrush to force him to throw up more. To make it seem like he had just overeaten, he collapsed. Again. We raced to the ER. Same hospital. Same surgeon. When he saw us, the doctor's face went red. You again? He immediately had security hold my parents back, and then called the police. Chapter 6. The police were already waiting when Peter was rushed into emergency care. An officer turned to me, stern but gentle. Miss, we need to ask, how can your brother eat this much? Did your parents ever force him to eat? I blinked, pretending to be confused. No, Peter's always had a big appetite. Since he was little, he could eat and never feel full. That's why they let him eat so much. They thought it made him special. I laid it out just enough to sound concerned but not accusatory. Just the right mix of innocence and honesty. The officer nodded and immediately contacted the hospital to run full-body diagnostics. They suspected either drug use or a medical disorder. I already knew the answer. Peter's brain scans came back within hours. Just like in my last life, the results showed hypothalamic dysfunction. Only this time, the damage was far worse. His organs were failing, his endocrine system collapsing, and complications had set in. The doctor sighed. It's a miracle he's still alive. Because Mom had been the one running his influencer career, she was deemed primarily responsible. She got slapped with a heavy fine and a written statement admitting guilt. But since the condition was rare, and she hadn't technically broken any laws at the time, she was released. Dad was cleared almost immediately. He'd kept his name off everything and barely participated in the streams. And what did he do with his freedom? He went straight to the OBGYN with his girlfriend for her first prenatal checkup. Of course I followed. I took photos. I filmed videos. I made sure to get every loving glance, every whispered promise, every ultrasound smile. Proof, just in case. Peter, meanwhile, had completely collapsed. He was in and out of surgery multiple times. Tubes in every orifice. Feeding lines. Breathing masks. His once round face was now swollen in a different way, bloated with steroids and fluids, purple bruises beneath his eyes. The money poured out of our accounts like water through a cracked dam. Every week, tens of thousands vanished into hospital bills. Dad visited less and less. Each time, he looked more annoyed than the last. He was checking out, preparing to cut ties. But I wasn't going to let him slip away that easily. Peter was still his son. Divorce or not, he'd pay. One way or another. Then one day, Dad showed up out of the blue, smiling like the model parent. Haley, he said, you've been working so hard. You've got exams coming up, right? Why don't you take some time to rest? I tilted my head, curious. Sure, Dad. But please, no fatty or greasy foods for Peter, okay? He's not supposed to eat anything that could spike his blood sugar. I slipped a voice recorder under Peter's bed and left. I hadn't even made it back to school before my homeroom teacher called me. Haley, can you come to the office? Your mom's on the phone. It's urgent. By the time I arrived, Peter was dead. Dad had brought in deep-fried fish, Mom's favorite dish. Peter had begged, and while Dad was in the bathroom, he scarfed it down. By the time anyone noticed, it was too late. He died writhing on the bathroom floor. As Mom screamed over Peter's corpse, I quietly retrieved the recorder. Damn you, you selfish bitch. Dad shouted. You killed my son. I want a divorce. He needed someone to blame, anyone but himself. He was ready to be free. And Mom? She fainted right there in the hospital hallway. When she came to, I was sitting by her bed. Where's Peter? She croaked. Where's your dad? I wiped my eyes with a tissue soaked in onion juice and whispered, Mom, Peter's gone. And Dad, he's been cheating. His girlfriend's pregnant. He's leaving us. She shrieked, tried to hit me, but I just pulled out the recorder and pressed play. On it, you could hear Dad's voice, coaxing Peter to try the fish, promising he'd understand one day. The moment Peter started choking, the audio turned to screams, then muffled sobbing. He said he didn't want to waste money anymore, I whispered. Liar, he wouldn't do that. Mom howled. Then I showed her the video. Dad and his mistress holding hands in the ultrasound room, their eyes glowing with excitement. She collapsed again, this time sobbing so hard the nurses came running. Hours later, she emerged from the bathroom. Her expression was empty, but her eyes were full of murder. "Haley," she said flatly, "don't tell anyone, not yet." She arranged a funeral for Peter like nothing had happened. She even invited Dad. For a while, things felt eerily calm. But I knew her storm was coming. So I packed my things and moved into the school dorms, pretending it was just for exam prep. I wasn't about to be collateral damage. I studied harder than ever. This was my shot. My escape. I'd already been denied college once, killed before I could even take the exam. Not this time. This time, I would win. Chapter 7. A month before finals. I was reviewing practice exams in the classroom when my homeroom teacher came rushing in, pale-faced. "Haley," he said, "come with me to the office. There are officers who need to speak with you." I knew. I didn't need to ask. They led me to the morgue. 2 bodies lay on cold metal slabs. One was my father. The other, a young woman, his pregnant mistress. The cops explained everything in hushed, cautious tones. My mom had followed Dad. She'd seen the ultrasound, heard the sweet nothings, seen the life he was building without us. So she plotted. She told him she'd agreed to the divorce, that she forgave him. Then she invited him over for one last conversation. She drugged him, dismembered him, piece by piece. Then she used his phone to lure the mistress to our apartment. She did the same to her. Tried to yank the unborn baby out with her bare hands. Screamed about bringing Peter back. Carried the fetus outside in a blood-drenched towel, ranting to strangers until someone finally called 911. The officers looked at me with real sympathy. "Stay strong, Haley," one said quietly. Tears slipped down my cheeks. Not from grief, but from something deeper. Freedom. At last. The police helped me file the paperwork, cremate the remains, settle the debts. I gathered Dad and Peter's ashes together, mixed them into one cheap plastic bag, and tossed them into a storm drain behind the hospital. Their chaos ended where they belonged, in the gutter. The story made headlines. Peter had been a viral star after all. Medical professionals came out in droves to explain his condition. Parents debated whether it was abuse, negligence, or both. He was only 8. His parents exploited him for views. You could tell he was sick from the start. The dad killed him, basically. Didn't even care. The mom lost it, but honestly, I get it. I handed the voice recordings to the police. They would have found them during the investigation anyway, so I figured I might as well offer them up front. It didn't take long for them to connect the dots. At the psychiatric facility, when they brought Mom in, she looked wrong. Eyes wild, lips cracked from dehydration, hair matted and falling out. But when she saw me, she froze. Then her mouth twisted into a snarl. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. You weren't supposed to survive. You're a curse, a damn plague. How are you still alive? I tilted my head and smiled. "Oh, Mom, don't worry. I plan to live a very long time." She lunged, but the orderlies held her back. I packed up the house, sold what was left, and drained the bank accounts. Every cent went into my college fund. With no one left to abuse me, no one to drain me, no one to silence me, I could finally breathe. Chapter 8. The exam results came in. I had aced the National College Entrance Test. Top percentile. Full ride to my dream university. I had finally done it. I changed my name, officially. So more Haley. I chose Clara Monroe. Clara, for clarity, light, a fresh start. Monroe because it sounded clean, independent, American. No more ties to that cursed household. I packed a single suitcase, slid my bank card into my pocket, and boarded the plane to my new life. As the aircraft lifted off, I looked out the window, watching the city shrink below me. Its flashing billboards, greasy food stalls, and the shadows of a past I'd burned to ash. I wasn't going back. Not ever. I wasn't the sister who begged. I wasn't the daughter who obeyed. I wasn't the scapegoat anymore. I was free. In my last life, I died with my stomach ruptured, tied to a chair, tortured by the family I sacrificed everything for. In this life, I buried them. I buried their cruelty, their greed, their rot. The end. Let me know if you the story by leaving a comment. Please subscribe for more stories. New updates every day.